Hello there. As you might know, I'm Radagast, but if you're new, I'm Radagast, and my username is ModWiz. 125 is just there because they required more than ModWiz. But I refer to myself as ModWiz when I use the username, not as ModWiz125. So, got a few people here. MC Wizard, Madfinger, and Oswald. Hello, hello. And a warm greetings to you. Hey, Christian Martin. And so, I'm kind of, part of the reason I'm doing this stream tonight is because I'm going to, do my normal stream on Monday, and I want to do whatever personal hygiene in this. I'm really kind of sitting in here. Hello, Jasmine. From a personal perspective, and personal for me is there's my own, starting with number one, but there are also people who I do call brothers, and that sharing of things that goes with true friendship and brotherhood. I forgot to place my mic correctly. Thank you. Okay, that should be better. Hopefully there shouldn't be any hum. I wouldn't know where the hum was coming from. But hopefully, if anything, it's a dynamo hum. Yeah, I did not position my mic, so bad on me. Hello. Hello, Tamu. So anyway, since I want to do, I really want to get into my Telestic transmissions on Monday night. But we'll be, doing it within a greater online community. And, there are occasionally, there are brush fires and the smoke to deal with. That always comes with brush fires. And I just wanted to have any discussion about that topic, which has to do with Raksha Moose Elephant. Hello, Meandering Mystic. And expanding the process. Wanted to get that, anything that might be in that kind of realm of community hygiene type of thing out of the way, because a Telestic transmission is about Telestic transmissions, Sophianic narrative, Kalika War Party, and what to do about real problems on Earth, regardless whether it's round or flat, because the problems exist on whatever shape it is, and so therefore they are common problems. And one of the problems none of us need is to get into debates over the shape of an Earth that has problems that better deserve our focus. And what is Telestic or Telesti are those who are aim. So Telestic is to have an aim in how one conducts oneself. And the Sophianic narrative informs that aim. It comes with a cosmology that values the human animal, the human species, holds us as sovereigns, and doesn't have a judgment awaiting us depending on how we conduct ourselves in the experiment. One of the things about the pagans was they had ancestor veneration. Because before the concepts of, having your heart weighed on, your heart weighed against a feather or on a scale, and if it fails, you get fed to a crocodile, or whether it's the normal heaven and hell thing. It is part of a cosmology that the ancients did not have. The ancients were returning to the dream time, where we come from and where we return. We're part of an ongoing experiment and co-creation with the creator of this planet and the human species. So it's a very different cosmology to sit within. And if anybody's going to judge you after your death, it'll be pissed off ancestors who will be, we left you a good legacy and you did this to our name. Or maybe a bunch of angry nature spirits that you abused during your lifetime. You know, I mean, the world was a continuum. There were, you had bodies, and then there's disembodied phases, but it was all part of one thing. And for the ancestors who had lived and died, you were carrying on the narrative of that family. And if you notice, where the rest of the world has been discouraged, and they call it ancestor worship, which it isn't worship. Again, your gratitude, veneration for those who prepared the way that you now walk. And in the pagan days, generally people would leave a better legacy because they hadn't turned over, and they weren't forced to turn over the ability to shape that legacy to government or guberment. When people were a people and had agency and were not forced in the beginning to give that agency to the city, state, or guberment, and now at the point where it's just part of the conversation that we get born into, the narrative. And also, as I put, a Greybeard perspective. And sometimes the concept of age, sometimes people get confused with ego. Age is about being an animal. It is the winters, both real and metaphorical, that animal body has weathered. And if one is going through that process with some form of consciousness and knowing that they can learn from it, there's a place, there's a seat that comes with that. So sometimes when if I were to speak about my age and how that might have some impact on things, it's not ego, it's animal. Again, a body that's been through as many winters. We're speaking a North American, northern perspective. If you're tuned in and you're paying attention and realizing, okay, there's lemons or lemonade. The lemons are the things that stung. The lemonade is the sweetness that can be made from those stings, the wisdom that can be gained. Similarly, from a Telestic perspective, and since language is important, let's take like the terms for the intelligence, the Aeon Sophia. Or Sophia, normally pronounced, but to distinguish between. But for the Greeks who used the word Sophia, they were saying it was titular, but it was also what the word was, which is wisdom. And so more often when I speak, I will be using the word wisdom when I'm speaking of the Aeon Sophia, because then it kind of turns it into a name. Oh, this is just a name of another being that you can or not participate in. For me, when I presence wisdom, I'm talking about the absolute quality that emanated from the originator, the quality of wisdom. And that's what I'm sitting in. So my gnosis, my centering, my grounding is in wisdom. The goddess wisdom, because the goddess Sophia, again, I want to translate. I want to what it meant to the Greeks when they said the goddess Sophia. What it meant to them was the wisdom goddess. And one of the problems with the cosmologies that kind of leave you guessing, or maybe even feel convinced that you'll pass the test when you cross over. The fact that there's to even play within a cosmological construct, that there's a test, is to say that you're not valued. That test will present you with your value, as opposed to when you're grounded in wisdom, your value is inherent in the fact that you were created to participate in this experiment, in this ability for the more ethereal or non-material to reach into the material, to be a part of the consciousness that created the smell of the rose, and then have a nose to smell that same created rose, and to be a part of where the consciousness that created it, and now this other kind of consciousness that through its biology can apprehend the breeze on one's face, the warmth of the sun, the scent of a rose, that beautiful whir of a hummingbird. The ability for that same consciousness that created the earth, and then placed a consciousness in there, to be able to experience, to be on both sides of the side that created, and then to be in it, to be in that holographic reality, so that it can be experienced. And so when I smell a rose, not only am I acknowledging the devas of the rose, and just wisdom herself, that the Mother Nature that created that, but also I'm into sharing it. I have the nose. I can swoon over this scent and share that swoon with the whole collective that I am a part of. And that living in that cosmology gives you an inherent value. The kind of value where name calling and accusations in a cyber format take on proportions and meaning, where certain things take on meaning that as long as they're kind of sitting in a certain context. I lost my train of thought. I'm not even going to try and fake my way through that. It'll come back. And the whole interesting aspect thing about the internet, like internet chats and comments. I wrote a few things down. What I did write was, the most crowded concrete jungle is more real than internet chat or comments. Where free speech, because in the real world, free speech doesn't come with a dental plan. I have a few other things written down. But once again, in a concrete jungle where there's like not a tree to be seen, cold, hard, steel, and concrete, there's still human animals running around. Real flesh and blood human animals that you can bump into, you can even smell. So that is closer to nature than the chat and comment environment that we spend many of our hours inhabiting. It's very different when you get into a call, face, voice, one-on-one. That has a lot of data and a certain amount of tactility, even though it's not in the normal tactile sense. Real friendships get formed. Real brotherships and sisterhoods get formed. Brotherhoods and sisterhoods. It becomes real. It becomes real. You share, and you burden share. Somebody can be saying something, but at the same time you can look on their face, and sometimes you'll realize that the pain on their face, the words that they share with you, did not equal the pain on your face, and then you will give them the space to let their words honor the truth of their face. I want to acknowledge, and you know, as far as, and really when it comes to the word community, especially in like any brush fires that can occur in this forest, the 800-pound gorilla, and I mean that as in a sense of alphaness, is C.W. Chanter. You know, his views, you know, his lifetime participation, everything about him puts him heads and shoulders above what the rest of us who are kind of context creators within the community, where there's, you know, there's a lot of similar username recognition. He's it. He is King Kong, and I have no problem with that. And especially, I don't. One of the reasons is because it's the facts, Jack. And one of the things we should never have a problem with is the real lay of the land. You know, it's this. You know, this is what it. And also, I'm doing my own thing. I am not in any form of competition at all with C.W. Chanter. I support what he does. He is operating at a pretty high, I would say at a very high capacity, and we all have limits on our capacity. He brings a keen intellect and keeps it logical, although we, you know, like all the rest of us, once we kind of have the logic, we can let ourselves know how we feel about what's real. Because there's a real difference between having feelings on what's real and something that can be shared in the same raw logical place where we can all agree logically this happens, and then we drop into feelings, there will be differences, but the logic holds. So that pertains also to, you know, perceptions of where injuries may have occurred. I can acknowledge the validity of the feelings from the way people express themselves, but I have nothing logical. Even when things get expressed, I see inconsistencies in the logic. I see misunderstandings that create straw men or straw situations. So and then how we feel about a situation that won't fit a logic examination of it. Here's another thing I wrote. One of the things that we celebrate as telestics and those who indulge with gnosis is the gift that is our imagination. I would go so far as to say that it is our incredible imagination that makes us such a target, or has been at least historically, because things seem to be changing greatly. But historically, it was our imagination, much more than the aforementioned louche, if you might know about it. It was our imagination that drew the non-corporeal, unimaginative to us. Why there might even be, you know, in a hive, like almost, you know, innumerable, imagine like almost like mites, little nanomites everywhere. They were clustered around us because of our imagination, to poach and try to mimic our imagination. There'll be the Archons and that whole group, Demiurge, that intrusion into our psychic space, that had a breakthrough into our physical space. And that's part of the recent history of the past 1,000 or so years. So imagination is a gift. And not only will it attract those looking for things to load onto their hard disk, because it has to be poached. But again, there is that envy that invests that energy, that demiurgic energy. And so once they're sharing into that imaginative field, very often they would dump in their own things, and a lot of fuckery would go there. But imagination is our gift. Then there's fantasy. See, we use imagination to imagine our way to imagine greater and better things. Use that imagination, in the growth of spirit into flesh, and the shaping of the natural environment around us. Imagination is that tool forward. But imagination does have a shadow side, and that shadow side is fantasy. Fantasy allows things that are not true to become part of the narrative, because it's just fantasy. What I wrote here is, there is fantasy that uses imagination to entertain or torture itself. And so a lot of the scenarios that I have been seeing and even getting transmissions on has been the fantasy of a community that has kinetic implications. Now, I would like to really, those who go out and dox people and then get an address and then call the cops to haunt them or report different things, even if it's just calling it a pizza you didn't order, that's real world. That's when it gets real. When real shit in your world that you don't want in there starts showing up from the actions of people, doxing people, getting information, and then calling place like, I want to report a domestic outburst that, and they give the address and the cops show up and there's nothing there, and yeah, they leave, but you've had a visit from the police. Okay, so I'm making a real difference between that real fuckery and things written in chat and comment. And so for myself, I can see the scenario. I can actually see the world that it's happening in, but it's fantasy. Injuries without bruising and blood. Again, there is an investment into fantasy of the real, and I don't see it. I can see the fantasy, but I won't partake of it. And I'm more than content to leave the role playing to that fantasy role playing to people who that's what they want to do. Because fantasy is what is using our imagination to entertain or torture ourselves. Logic helps us to stay in our imagination and less in our fantasy. Because sometimes when we're not using logic and stringing together kind of ideological, conceptual constructs, things can contradict themselves on a logical level that are not apparent at the feeling level, because they feel the same. They have a common feel tone. They don't need to satisfy logic. Where when things are taken into the logical realm, well, then it's kind of like, it's like fitting together, almost like, it's more like puzzle pieces. The piece fits or it doesn't. And if you know what the picture's supposed to look like, and then you putting together the pieces and they really don't fit, or when you're done fitting them together, it doesn't resemble the what was, you know, things that are said. I mean, there's a lot of times where things that are said are misunderstood. Good evening, sunshine on Sophia, or Sophia. And just to kind of break that up a little bit, I just want to say, wisdom is not a belief system. So here's a Telestic perspective. And I apologize to any people who might come for sometimes more. I'm trying to be thoughtful as I do what I'm doing here. Even before I get to Telestic perspective, I'll allow myself to get a little more. I'll get a little visceral here for a moment. The subject not mentioned yet, because I actually want to kind of get us into our into our third and hopefully fourth chakra by invoking wisdom. But I'm here to speak about what I consider to be a tempest and a playpen, as I'm calling it. And it really swirls around Raksha Moose retiring his persona and his name, and the target on his back that went with it, and emerging as another kindler, gentler. And one of the funny things, of course, I knew Elephant was Raksha the whole time. And would I do it again? In a fucking heartbeat. He's my brother. And I care for him. And the fact that he takes all of this seriously makes me take it seriously. I would blow all this off if it wasn't for the fact that this is very real to him, and I honor him for that. To me, he invests people with a value that I would say, no, you need a little more upfront to do business here. He is generous. He is generous beyond wisdom, in my opinion. But he's my brother, and I'm going to support him, and I'm going to hold him, and I'm going to hug him during all of this. And when he needed privacy, I had no problem honoring my brother's privacy. Somebody I know, somebody I can turn to when I'm not feeling well and get good counsel. Someone who we're sharing the road of wisdom together. We both everything we know comes where it comes from. We acknowledge the same source. We use different language. Matter of fact, we now have a common language that we kind of use in those of us grounded in wisdom. And if that sounds, Sophia, Gaia, Mother Earth, that's what we're talking about here. And that, and having different cosmologies, one that grants you your value from the get-go, and against ones where you kind of, there's scales or angels, or, again, there's guardians to your value. Those are seriously different cosmologies. Hey, cut it out. Excuse me, I'm gonna have to get rid of the toms. They're pretty relentless. Okay. Excuse me. I'm back. So, I know I was talking about Raksha and supporting my brother and sharing even into his feelings. Okay, I feel differently about what's all going on here, but I'm sharing this with him. And when I feel the pain, and I know of the pain, and I've seen the pain from his love of people, his, like again, his investing value into places where my business sense would say it's a bad investment. And so that's why very often when I'm offering here, it's just like I'm, trying to just enjoy sharing in many ways the joy of being aimed to being grounded in a narrative that gives one value and sovereignty and purpose and understanding of why am I here? To have a purpose and to know why you're here and know it isn't some kind of mission-driven statement. It's one of experience and being tapped into that wisdom. And as we move forward, each new situation gives us a chance to find inspiration, use our imagination, and do wise things. Hello, Vernon. And wisdom and compassion are really part of to me, the same package. And it is my compassion for my brother Raksha. It's not and it's also, even if I didn't call him my brother, I've listened to his streams. I know of the hours he has spent with people when they needed to talk to him. So those hours, you can say whatever you want about time and whatever it is, but we all experience hours. And we all know in any given day, hours done here means hours that something else could be done within those hours can't be done. And then, of course, there's always the sleep cycle. And how that sleep cycle might come on a lot earlier if one has poured themselves into another's concerns and tried to pull them out of the abyss or extreme error. So, so for me, a lot of the controversy that has arisen over Raksha wanting to take on another persona, and he actually did take on another persona. Like I said, it was really funny. I mean, I would speak to him after a show and go, I don't even, like, elephant is like this. I even said, I get images of somebody knitting doilies. I mean, there's a real difference. Which is just part of the authenticity of it all. A lot of people in PC culture might, call him girl and she, and because it's hip. And oh yeah, two-spirit, of course we understand two-spirit. Well, do you? I mean, we just saw it in action. Elephant is a two-spirit avatar use, and coming in as a woman, and playing every part, and I thought bringing a fairly decent portion of the divine feminine in with it. I thought it was great. And of course, I thought it was really great because how everybody, oh, don't be judgmental. Well, Raksha Moose's name immediately would get elicits judgments, and a lot of it, those judgments are turning me reacting to constructs of original constructs of what's deceit and what's deceptive and what's hypocrisy. How in a real human society where we actually have real connections with each other, and that includes, again, time spent looking at each other, talking to each other, hearing each other, the inflection, that's what word means. When you give your word, you can't give your word to a bunch of anonymous avatars. Seriously. There's no we have to understand what's real, so that when the bonds that make our species such a rich one, and the way we did things before laws, that's based on what's real. If Raksha and I were to have a disagreement, it would be looking at each other. Not to, again, and of course we have differences of opinion, but we always are able to tune in, because we're coming from the same source, and and the whole idea is which one of us is holding our own personal balance a little bit. It's a beautiful thing. I love it. Wouldn't have it any other way. It would be easier, but I wouldn't have it any other way. And so I'm completely, to me, there was nothing I felt, to me, in the Raksha elephant thing, I saw no deception. I saw the right to privacy. I saw the right to not have to have a target on one's back. And just the life, to get in and mix and mingle with people that you love. So I was more than happy to support what Raksha did, and I would do it again. But this, there's like kind of like a little bit of a divide, and there's one actually is built on whether or not we seek each other out, and of course, and I can imagine there are a lot of people who I know that people seek each other out according to where they're kind of on the same page. So where Raksha, myself, and a few others might regularly convene, it's just us doing, because we can communicate. We're all about Mama. Mama, it holds the center point. Wisdom holds the center point. Nature is a big part of that language and communication. That's why the runes and the animal cards are such a big part of how we work with doing divining with each other. To be able to unpack, each one bring a package by doing their own, and then bringing it into a center and unpacking that together. And that doesn't have to be just a few people. It could be a big group of people, but this was naturally forming. Natural interests bring people into things. I guess, I won't join Discord, because in the name, Discord, I don't want to be part of a Discord. There's plenty of Discord already. It's one of the things I'm addressing here. Because I feel that I know the Discord does not have to be there. But I'm certainly not going to join Discord. But I'm very much, a lot of people have moved off of these main platforms, have gone into Discord, and they naturally seek each other out. It's a natural process. People who have a common language, and CW kind of went. I thought, whoa, that was brave. What you just mentioned, like there are different intellectual capacities, and one is not better than the other. They're just different, and communications take place, according to how abstract one can go, to where there's layers of abstraction to the point where it's more grounded. I mean, absolutely grounded. And people should, I think, should form into groups where they can discuss what matters, and break it down in a language that they can use, and come to their own understanding. So once again, I was there for every single Moose Lodge, and largely because I was a moderator, and as a moderator, it's a moderator is not a gold star. It's it's an assignment. So when I might want to, during some of those Moose Lodges, when I might want to be doing something else, well, people, when you have a live stream, your moderators are there to kind of just help keep everything together. So, so for me, moderator has never been an honor per se. Of course, it's an honor because you're being trusted with something, but it's the something that I'm being trusted with. That was what being a moderator was for me. Not sure why I got off. Oh yeah, so just different. Like even here in when I was doing Can't You Hear Me Gnostic, the moderators were all people who were grounded in the Sophianic narrative, or just grounded into the wisdom narrative. Raksha would be said more walks the good red road, a native expression of the North American Indians. Especially the Lakota. The Lakota are the heavyweights in many ways as far as the spirituality goes. They're kind of the rabbis. But again, that being grounded in the same reality, being grounded in the same source, being grounded in the same kind of concept of origin and journey, are kind of important. And so the various places that people can form discussion groups are all appropriate. There's no hierarchies or special things. Everybody's fitting in where they fit in, and I mean, I'm quite sure if I decided to join Discord and wanted to get into a conversation, I'm quite sure I'd be allowed in. But I'm not. So, but because I'm not, I don't feel like, oh, I'm not a part of that. No, I'm not a part of it because I'm not going to join Discord. And I have, again, I prefer, I enjoy because we're all so unique. And how that looks like when that uniqueness is coupled with a groundedness in the same creation story. And the same value that is given from that. So I said everything I wrote. I said everything I wrote down about fantasy, the difference between fantasy and imagination. And fantasy, my definition would be fantasy is using imagination to entertain or torture oneself, or torture itself. Wisdom is not a belief system. It's a quality. And that even the most crowded concrete jungle is more real than what goes on in internet chats and comments. And again, this is talking about when it's just limited to whatever's going on in chats and comments, and not the, to me, what I was as a human animal considered kind of criminal behavior of harassing people by finding out where they live and then calling in false scenarios, creating fantasies of fuckery in people's lives. And again, this arises within people who supposedly think they're part of a community, going after people like this. I mean, why not? If somebody annoys you, why don't you just leave them the fuck alone, like any other adult who's got some kind of balance in them does. You don't like something, you leave them alone, because if you don't, a fight might break out. And good, you know, to me, mature males do everything they can to avoid fights. Because by the time you've gotten to be a mature male, you've been in a few. There's something to avoid. Not run from, but to avoid. And so part of it, I just want to come on, you know, where there seemed to be like, oh, you know, dishonesty, even injury. Apparently some people, you know, were, felt betrayed. I mean, what enemy were you turned over to? I mean, to me, betrayal is like, I mean, drama make me want to throw up my mouth drama. And, you know, and in many ways, you know, when the Moose Lodge was burned down, that was like, okay, my teachings are nothing to you. I'm going to go away. And as Raksha, the teacher, he went away. The point was made. The hints were received. So, again, I unapologetically support what Raksha did. And that's it. No, not even a hint of apology. The fact that to even think it would be insulting for me to even think there was anything to address in the form of an apology. It would be insulting to my intelligence. Once again, I feel it. I'm a very empathetic, compassionate person. I can tune into even the craziest hysteria. I can feel that. I can touch its validity. And in its touching its validity, I understand where it gains its reality, and I can't go there. I'm not entering into the Dungeons and Dragons world. Hello, enjoy being. So I think I'm going to close it up there. Because this is, you know, there are people who don't come into the chats who are just subscribers. I mean, I had over 800 subscribers before I ever was on a CW Chanter live stream, which certainly gave me hundreds more. But I still have a group that apparently listens to my videos for me, not so much as part of a community. You know, like just like I listen to lots of videos and I don't feel in any sense a part of a community. I listen to the person. I'm interested in what that person has to say. I'm not part of a community listening to that person. Okay. MC, I will thank you for that. I never got to the Telestic perspective. And for this, I'm going to keep the Telestic perspective for this topic here. It's about aim. So, you know, while there are debates over the shape of the Earth and whether or not Raksha is a dick and a betrayer for using another username or, you know, avatar to interact without a target on his back, there is a very real, organized, psychopathic, historical threat on the Earth, no matter what the shape is. And it grossly outweighs any fucking internet drama. Grossly outweighs. It actually is a threat to us, not to our feelings, to our fucking bodies. And there isn't much focus there. So that the reason I wanted to clear this is so when I do my Monday stream, we can start talking about things like the Kalika War Party and what the Sophianic narrative provides us as a place to understand where we are, what has happened, and what we need to do. And also doing it in a practical sense, because this isn't about raising armies. This isn't about this isn't about the Second Amendment. This is about reclaiming our power and our power sharing with the earth, the wisdom goddess, and her various attributes. And for those who, again, there's something called the Shakti Cluster app, but that is specifically aimed at the Telestai. There's been a few things up on John's channel, but it's for those. It's not even worth considering if one does not enter. It's from the Sophianic narrative. It's from a cosmology. It works within a reality structure. Hello, Mari. And Darcy. And Leader Blue. And so, again, when there's, a Tempest and a Playpen, an internet drama, and there is real enemies of life, of the human species, in very influential positions. They are a clear and present danger, an organic threat. And so the Telestic perspective is to focus on the problems. Not what he said this, she said this word, they broke their word, blah, blah, blah. There are people who are happy to hang our skins on their belts. Real psychopaths. And Max Egan addresses it weekly. His last one was great. What do you call it? The something dickheads? Fascist dickheads. With all the we'll describe anybody. Anybody see the last Kerry Cassidy video? Anybody watch the last Max Egan video? Kerry Cassidy. I got nothing against her, but I mean, come on, what's coming out of there? What's coming out of that tube? It is about being a warrior from the concept, not from a warrior class where, it was almost like, where war is ever present, but warrior when you are threatened, you know how to respond. It's just like in our bodies, we're having T cells. When there is a pathogen, if you don't mount an immune response, expect to be ill and possibly die. And so, because Gnosis, if nothing else, is quite practical, there is the awakening of the magical child, as we will often refer to ourselves, the Rome, the Telestai, the magical children, because that's what got created. Yeah, I won't go off on that sidebar, especially since, okay. The magical children. And so there has been magic used against the greater unknowing population. And again, what's interesting is, the systems, especially the religious systems, the biggest mind control system leading up to the modern times when it got dumped into the entertainment industry. Those who give, books more credence, well, they're held there, but the entertainment is there to pick up anybody who escapes that mind prison. So there's a practicality of understanding being the magical child, that there is an actual mapping of the wisdom goddess and her many Dakini Shakti aspects. And, just to hear the word Kalika World Party, I go, ooh, it sounds creepy. When you look at it, you see how well thought out it is, how it's a strategy, that it's got, I forget how many bands, because it's based on a Thunderbird formation, and the first part of the Thunderbird is you could say the Kalika warriors. And I won't go into explaining Kali here, because again, it only pertains if you're in the narrative. Without being in the narrative, it's kind of just gibberish. And of course, within those first couple of bands, I've kind of decided, just for the Telestai here, and those I have really, really aligned myself with Tara, Wrathful Green Tara. The appropriateness of me feeling that, and then of course her shift buddy Bhudevi also plays in very well. Since I started following these cycles, they were the ones I started with, and of course there was a 2-month dose of them, and I really thought they were so intense with me. I was like, oh man, I'm ready for the next Shakti. I think a little bit of a break, and it certainly was a break in their own way. But what's good about being through 2 other Shaktis now is that I miss Tara and Bhudevi, so I'm really realizing that connection. And Tara's right up there in the first, I think I don't know if she's in the first or second band. I'd have to call it up, and this will be part of Monday. MC Wizard going for it. That's what I like. Oh, you go, MC. Hello, Ravenwolf. I mean, the funny thing is, like listening to somebody like Dutch Synths, who is somebody I've been listening to a lot since Mama's been shaking her hips big time in these really, really deep earthquakes of considerable magnitude. And the beauty of listening to Dutch Synths, who, rather than working, there's a few other people, the Expando Earth model of Cliff High also posits a plasmic core. But so of course, the Selfianic narrative, we have a living being as that plasmic core. If you can kind of get a little bit of what a plasmic core is like, because she did originate in the galactic center, and if you have an understanding of that new gaudy textured stuff at the galactic centers, you might have a little clue, at least some let's call it left brain scientific cluing in, which to me is what Cliff High is doing. He's kind of working with the plasma model without the consciousness of the plasma. But then you have Dutch Synths, who's also although he does refer to Mother Nature, but it's not quite with the depth of a Rome. And but still, he's able to explain these because of what plasma is. Now, as he's explaining some of these gyrations, and I'm watching some of it, I'm going, look at Mama move her hips. Ooh, baby. Ooh, baby. And so it's really kind of funny, watching somebody like Dutch Synths and actually having a telestic perspective, being enough in touch with her consciousness, between communing with her, and then to me the more natural divination sets. And there now are some tarot that are really geared into natural things rather than the hermetic influences that are, again, they're different. It's a different otherworldly environment as far as its laws, and that's usually, to me, the giveaway is the word law. Like I said, there are the ways of things. There is the way the universe conducts itself, the way the galaxy conducts itself, the way the aeons conducted themselves. There are no laws. And we, like the aeons, can have our ways through honor and integrity and acknowledging our connection. Yeah, you know something enjoy being the naming, I can see, but you know something when you really start to the more time you kind of spend, especially with other people, because you really start to realize what other answer do we have? It is, to me, the only responsible thing, and again, by responding to a very real threat, and one that is based, to me, in more sanity than let's say pitchforks and torches. Oh yeah. So although amongst the the religions came in and kind of, and then just a general way about it was pagan or old-fashioned to have ancestor veneration, where your ancestors were kind of almost like household family deities. But in a natural system, and even in a dream time of the Aboriginals, there's a continuum. The dream time is the greater reality, but this is an operative reality with its own exquisiteness, its sensuality. And but the thing is, as they discouraged regular people, the ones who are all the laws are constructed around like a cage, while they're it's primitive to get into ancestor worship. Look at the elites. You go into their house and they got these big, huge portraits of the ones who came before them. They practice it because they know the value of continuation of what you have begun as a family. Now, they're engaged in fuckery, most of them, but at least they honor themselves by caring about what the ones that came before them did and what they're going to do in that continuation. And that's a pagan perspective. That's where you don't have judges. I mean, the organized religion of the Egyptians is not pagan in my opinion. The organized religions, of Rome were not pagan. It was those I've said it before, those polytheistic Romans who came up with the term for the primitive nature worshippers. Those are the ones they called pagani. So the difference between the pagans are the non-organized systems. They are based in the earth. Rivers have names. Springs are, celebrated, and, because that's where the life-giving water is coming out of the earth. You might build a shrine there and be thankful and sing to it. There are stories of dry streams. Somebody went to a dry stream, was wondering how they could get it to run water again. And the stream and the dry spring head, it was a spring head, told him, put the idea in his head to sing to him, and he sang to it. And I don't know if it happened on just one day or if he sang to it 2 days, and the spring started producing water again and produced a small creek from it. It went away because nobody had honored it. The same reason moose went away. Nobody honored them. Or, you know what I mean, the larger group. And But it just took one person singing anything. He didn't know what to sing. It was a he in this case. He just sang to the spring, and the spring came back to life and provided water. The earth is alive. The pagan worldview is one of animism. And it's so sweet to keep it local and simple. I mean, even the Ifa religion of the Yoruba was all of their Orisha were based on very real local agents of the mother. That's why when you take ayahuasca, you meet Pachamama, that big snake, because you're doing her, that region, you're doing that regional ethnogen, and it has, that region has its own expression. It best expresses the jungle. Yes. I was just going to mention Yemaya and Oshun. Yemaya is, to the best of my will, and I've done some studying this, Yemaya is the one of salt waters, and Oshun of fresh waters. And one of the reasons I use it, because I usually use mnemonics, memory aids. And so since Oshun sounded so much like ocean, I went, oh, that'd be a good mnemonic. Well, in this case, it's a counter mnemonic, where Oshun, the one that sounds like ocean, is in fact the sweet water deity, and Yemaya is salt water. So anyway, so on Monday, I hope, I shouldn't say I hope, I'm intending, but I'm just trying to find the space. I'm trying to I have a lot of things that I need to get done in real life, or because the real life rent is something I have to attend to, and I've had some real great benefactors assisting me in that, but I have the ability to do it myself, but there are things I have to do, and the things I have to do I cannot do in front of a computer. I like that, enjoy being. I like that a lot. That's why people were once, had a sense of place when the modern world, the very recent modern world, the industrial age modern world, and relocating for a better job. And then place no longer was important. The job was. MC, I really want to thank you for what you put in about the Kalika War Party. Thank you. The other interesting, just very quickly, just regarding like people who contribute, like as MC did, MC Windsor. In the past, when I first started my Can't You Hear Me Gnostic, which will now become Telestic Transmissions, because it's more concise, Gnostic. Gnostic is, I know what Gnostic means, the Telestic, I know what we think Gnostic means, but there's a lot of, type Gnostic into a YouTube search engine, and you have to really wonder. But with like regards to like whatever, any of the anytime you ever see a moderator in my channel, it's usually because I've liked what I've seen them, what they've said, and I would like them. And since the wrenches tend to attract attention, if nothing else, it just becomes oh, a moderator said something. And when people have really good things, good input, that's usually when I like to, okay, let me draw attention to what these people say. So I used the moderator wrench to kind of do that. But there's not a single person that's ever been made a moderator here that I have not at least emailed firsthand and asked them, are they comfortable with that? Because again, I don't see it as an honor. I see it as a labor of love, no less. But it's a responsibility. So there are sometimes I might go, oh, MC, I like what you're saying. Let me make you a moderator. I haven't asked his permission. There's not a single moderator in here I did not ask permission first. Because again, to me, you don't tag somebody with responsibility. You ask them if they'll take it on. That's my Greybeard, old school way of doing things. I share them with you because I don't think they were shared in the education system, and we can't. And I do not count on the education system on how we educate each other. And us Greybeards, if we've lived a life with some honor, we'll have something to offer just by having those extra winters. Obviously they're not in most cases not as life challenging as winters one time were. Yeah, I mean that's why I'm very often, in the chats here, the moderators are not so much to moderate is again the people who I think who share my love of Sophia, of wisdom, and have spent time in who spend time in the dreaming, and so they're gonna their comments will be coming from a dream perspective of being in the dreaming, and that's what the Can't You Hear Me Gnostic is about, and that's what Telestic Transmission is about. It's about being in the dreaming. It's about the Sophianic narrative. It's about being aimed. So I had bad video settings, and yeah. So anyway, I guess that's it. I wanted to come on and just say, from where I am, I acknowledge people's feelings. Thank you, Oswald. It's actually a good reason to wrap things up. I don't know. Again, it was just to kind of and by my own lack of apology about what Raksha did, to me, it's actually I want to represent my brother unapologetically. Doing what's correct, especially for oneself, and no harm, no foul. Like again, there's no bruises, there's no injuries here. They can be created, and then that's fantasy can use the imagination to either entertain or torment itself. So, and again, if CW's on, the 800-pound gorilla with great love, again, Alpha, the Alpha, I would say, context creator in what we call a community, or what we acknowledge, again, recognition. Let's call it username recognition community. Because it might actually. Yeah, John Lamb Lash, the YouTube channel, John Lamb Lash. And that's another name I'm quite unapologetic about using. And for much the same reason it goes with Raksha. I mean, there's so much misunderstanding. There's so much there, and it's none of that is meant to be sorted out in comment sections and chats. You know, campfire situations, you know, like big Zoom meetings where a bunch of people come in, but the whole reason is to, you know, knowing that we can get this settled a bit. This doesn't, you know, don't want it too settled because it's good for some froth. Froth is fine. Thank you, Tamu. Yeah, Posmo's YouTube channel is Positive Momentum. So anyway, this didn't go too long. I mean, because the thing is, if I'm going to put out a long video, I want it to be where, and I think I've managed to get some wisdom in here, and at least a short Telestic perspective. And I want to thank MC Windsor for reminding me that I had not quite gotten to a taste of, you know, Telestic. I hadn't shot that arrow, so to speak. So anyway, so the next time I intend to do a live stream will be this coming up Monday at 9 p.m. Eastern time, as I normally do. And if I don't have the new thumbnail, it'll be up as a Mystic Brew, but it will be, ultimately will be Telestic transmissions. And even if I call it Mystic Brew, it's going to be a Telestic transmission. All right, so I think that the chat was great. I just feel a lot of settled wisdom here, and I'm very grateful for that. And I guess that's that. All right, so I got some bean soup I need to make. The beans are soaking. It's time for them to start cooking. Take care of you.